Hello and welcome to World of Business, your weekly update into trending news and latest developments on the stock markets. My name is Mnangagwa. Now, today we explore an issue that has significant implications on Zimbabwe's economic growth, the call for the lifting of sanctions. And we're going to unpack this and more in the second segment with Mr Luxon Zembe, a renowned economist. But for now, we give you the exchange rates as of recently. The Zimbabwe gold to the USD interbank was at 26.46 zig. The Zimbabwe gold to the Great Britain pound interbank rate was at 35.03 zig. The Zimbabwe gold to the euro interbank rate was at 30.78 zig. The Zimbabwe gold to the South African rand interbank was at 0.64 zig. The Zimbabwe gold to the Botswana pula interbank rate was at 1.87 zig. We also give you commodity prices on the global markets. Gold per ounce traded at 4,025 after it went up by 1.05 percentage points. Silver per ounce traded at $48.23 after it went up by 1.90 percentage points. Copper per pound traded at $522.40 after it went up by 1.02 percentage points. Platinum per ounce traded at $1,610 after it went up by 1.32 percentage points. And that's it for the second segment. Do stay tuned for more. We got more to unpack only on ZBC. Welcome back to the second segment of World of Business. Now, as the nation continues to pursue economic growth, transformation, and engagement within the global community, we ask, how will the lifting of sanctions open new markets, attract investment, and lower cost of doing business in the country? How has Zimbabwe's economy fared under sanctions, and will this be a catalyst to realizing Zimbabwe's full economic potential? Let's unpack the opportunities and realities behind this important conversation, and I'm still joined in the studio by Mr Luxon Zembe, an renowned economist. Mr. Luxon, we welcome you to the show.
Thank you.
Now, to start, can you give us a snapshot of Zimbabwe's current economic landscape, the positives done by the government and business, and how sanctions fit into the bigger picture?
Thanks, Tafara. I think Zimbabwe is currently poised on a very exciting, growth trajectory, coming from a battered, position where in the past we had been seriously affected. We will be talking about the impact of, the sanctions, but for now we're on a positive trajectory. Anticipated GDP growth,
the 6.6%.
Yeah, 6.6%. That is being, maybe from talking about plus or minus 6%. Okay, really to put it, taking into account other variables that may come in. And then secondly, as you know, from a tourism point of view, we are really excited that Zimbabwe ranked as one of the best countries.
Actually, the best country
to visit in, which is great, and that gives us really a good impetus. And secondly, you are talking about the growth of the manufacturing sector. Currently, we are seeing, the capacity utilization now trending of around about plus or minus 55% in terms of capacity utilization. You go into the agricultural sector, we are seeing a growth and, an uptake, which is exciting. We just pray and hope that we will have sufficient rains this year. Yes, Met has warned us that it may be late, but hopefully it won't be too late, and that we'll have sufficient and well spread over the agricultural season in order for us to really optimize on the coming agricultural season. But so far, I think it's positive. And we're looking at the berries, okay, for instance. We've become actually the biggest exporter of, berries on the international market, besides other, horticultural products, flowers, for instance, that we are also exporting. And I think which is exciting news. You look at the mining sector and the investments that are coming in through there. So generally, across all the major sectors of the economy, we are seeing a positive trajectory. We are seeing resuscitation. We are seeing, growth. And this speaks to the resilience of the Zimbabwean economy.
And this is all happening whilst we are under sanctions.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right.
The growth, the trajectory, all of it is happening while they're under sanctions. Yes.
That's it.
Now, from an economist's perspective, what specific type of sanctions have the greatest bearing on economic activity and trade here in Zimbabwe?
I think when you look back, starting from 2000 and 2001, when, for instance, the ZEDERA was put in place, which basically constrained this country from doing business with the rest of the international community. A very, aggressive, a very,
was
negative,
unfriendly.
unfriendly, regime that was put in there, sanctions regime. That's by the United States. Europe came in as well, in 2002.
The West and the allies.
And
yes.
teaming up together against the country because one of the land redistribution, which they are not happy about, okay, and other factors, but mainly I think it was the land redistribution exercise which we needed to do.
It was necessary. It was necessary
because that's what we fought for,
yes.
and that's what independence is all about. That's the freedom that we have. Okay, we needed to really enjoy the fruits of our hard-won independence, and that was very important.
You're speaking as a freedom fighter, yes?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, when I get in there in that space, I speak as a freedom fighter.
All right.
And because we fought for freedom. In fact, we fought for freedom, economic freedom, social freedom, intellectual freedom, just freedom, all aspects in life. And this is what gives quality of life to any nation, to any people. When they're free to do what they want to do, and they've got access to the resources which they need in order to compete with anybody else in the world
Mr.
freely.
Zembe,
And sanctions deprived us.
I actually like how you were specifying that we needed freedom, economic freedom. These are like sectors that have been affected.
Yes.
Now, which key sectors have been negatively affected most by these sanctions, and in what way?
Okay, fine. You're talking about the economic sector. I think that's the biggest way.
Yes,
we could not trade freely with the rest of the country, with the world. Okay, because then America and its allies imposed embargoes, sanctions, even including through the UN, despite the UN fighting, for freedom, okay, through various articles and the resolutions, but America and its allies continue to enforce. We could not trade, okay? The banks, for instance, they could not transfer your money. If you wanted to transfer money to your markets, your clients outside, it was difficult, right, to do it freely, okay? And using that to try and enforce and impose these sanctions on us, number one. Number two, as a result of that, because it's the weaponization of sanctions that then took place.
I like the term,
right?
weaponization.
Yes. Whereby now anybody who would be seen to deal with us
was a bad person.
Exactly. And they would be also sanctioned. As a result, people had to protect their freedoms as well, the international world.
So it's safe to say the sanctions also affected a lot of
The
African
entire-
countries.
yes,
It's usually
exactly.
mostly the SADC region.
Exactly, because we could not trade freely.
Yes.
And that's important. And more so that we use the American dollar
The
for trading.
dollarization,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. And therefore, for any transactions, payments, and all the like, they have to go through America. And this is where they would then impose the sanctions and make sure that they block these whenever they felt like. And that affected the economic sector badly. Not only that, okay, in fact, let's track it. The economy is affected. Companies are finding it difficult to operate. They can't access, funding internally, even as Zimbabwe, because all countries, there is no country which can say they are independent.
None.
Of none. Even America needs support from, World Bank, IMF, right? Though they are the major players and decision makers, but they still need. So all countries need what we call bilateral support. They need multilateral support, balance of payment support, in order for them to run the economy smoothly. So we're deprived
all of these. The sanctions
of all
deprived
these.
all of
Yes.
this.
And what then happened? Our economy and our countries then started finding it difficult to operate. Okay?
know what,
And others closing. You talk about your Cisco Steels of this world, badly affected by the sanctions. And a lot of other companies, who are being affected, failing to trade freely, failing to then access funds, failing to access international markets. They started obviously, going down, and as they were going down with loss of jobs. And because of the loss of jobs, people had to now go into what you call a survival mode, Zimbabweans. What happened? That's when the great track, happened when Zimbabweans now, and the skilled ones, started
Brain drain.
going out,
Yes.
into the diaspora, which led to the brain drain, which led to skills, loss of skills, and that became a challenge. And not only here, But even where they were going, and this
Mr.
is why you find that a lot of our Zimbabweans socially, and you know, even from a humanity point of view, if you look at some of the jobs that they do out there, what you call menial tasks,
Yes.
highly experienced, educated people, you know,
In the wrong qualification.
now doing menial tasks, and that's dehumanizing,
Very
that's
dehumanizing.
demoralizing.
Now,
Okay,
Mr.
it's,
Zembe.
to me,
Just to take you
it's a
back.
it's a form of slavery.
Modern day slavery. Now, just to take you back where you were talking about Zimbabwe's access to international finance,
Yes.
how have the sanctions influenced Zimbabwe's access to credit lines and foreign direct investment and international finances?
You find that the banks could not access, their intermediaries. Okay. They go out there looking for lines of credit. And even other funders, financiers, they come through the banking in institutions, okay, to provide resources. But now they could not. Banks could not access these resources. Even in terms of correspondent banks to facilitate transactions between companies, individuals, and whoever they may want to they deal with globally, there were challenges as well. So that then restricted, and we find ourselves left with only a few friends,
Very
like
few
the
friends.
Afrexim Bank, who remained with us and continue to support the Zimbabwean economy. And thanks to some of our friends, okay, who sympathized and who understood our situation. And up to this day, Afrexim Bank, for instance, is still one of the financiers that really has supported us and continues to support this
financial
economy
powerhouse.
in a big way, and we thank them for that. So those were the challenges that, and when you come to even government, in terms of government, for government to be able to, support infrastructure development, to provide social services,
Youth empowerment.
youth empowerment.
I'm big on that one.
Yes, they need resources. Okay, but because they were now, the resource base was shrinking, and they were finding it difficult. No support from external, where we get even medium to long-term funding is found from these lateral institutions.
Yeah, true.
These are the ones who give us 25, 30-year loans, but they all dried up, which means we're living from hand to mouth as a country. And this is why, despite all that, it's a marvel, it's a miracle, and reflecting and showing how Zimbabwe's economy is resilient. And that obviously speaks to the people, that Zimbabweans are very resilient, are very creative, very innovative, despite the challenges, but they've been very innovative.
Yes.
And how also have they been innovative? You've seen now, because the formal sector was seriously impacted by the sanctions,
Yes.
denied access to the resources, drying the taps were dried up.
Actually, I have a question on that one.
Yes.
What practical challenges arise from sanctions in terms of payment, supply chains, and external partnerships for the local firms, now that you're talking about the local firms?
Yes, so they dry up, okay, and disruption of all the supply chains that then take place, because you need to pay, you need
Yes.
to access resources, okay, and we could not. So what then happened in the process is that we saw the shrinkage of the formal economy, and then people being creative, innovative, moved to the informal economy. And this is why you find right now, as we speak, 75% of this economy is informal economy. And that ingenuity, that creativity,
Yes.
of Zimbabweans to be able to say, no, we're not going to just cry, okay, and sit there and cry because of what has happened. But let's be creative.
Yes.
Let's get on, okay? And they moved on. And we also want to thank, those who went into the diaspora.
The remittances that are coming through.
This year, we're going to hit more than 2 billion
Yes.
in terms of remittances,
And that's much more as compared to last year.
which is great. And we are seeing that support that is coming through in terms of those remittances. So those are positive developments and showing the resilience of Zimbabwe, despite the menial tasks that they are doing, and despite the informalization and moving in there. But we've seen how the Zimbabweans are creative, innovative, and can rise up to challenges and still hold their own, to say yes, despite those adverse forces like sanctions coming through,
We
we're
still
still
survive.
there, we still survived, and we're still standing. But I'm happy that the whole international community now is behind Zimbabwe to say these sanctions
Are wrong.
must be lifted, they must be removed because they are wrong, they are immoral, they are not friendly at all.
They're inhumane.
They are inhumane, and they've created suffering for everybody, including those countries that trade with us.
Yes.
Because they could not also freely trade with us because they were then victimized in the process. So they also suffered. They also lost business in the process. And this is why everybody is saying, but hey guys, this is in any humane way, and there is no justification for maintaining. First of all, there was no justification for those sanctions in the first place, and there's no justification for maintaining those sanctions, and hence the call for immediate removal of those sanctions so that we can be free like any other nation.
Now, like Mr. Kazembe is saying, the sanctions have to be lifted and removed, but still in the face of adversity, the Second Republic and the Zimbabweans still survive and we still thrive. Now we'll be right back after this, only on World of Business here on ZBC. Now welcome back to the last segment of World of Business, and today we're discussing the call for the lifting of sanctions on Zimbabwe. And as we continue, how will the lifting of sanctions open new markets, attract investments and lower cost of business? How has Zimbabwe's economy fared under sanctions? And will this be a catalyst to realizing Zimbabwe's full economic potential? Now we're still here in the studio with Mr. Luxon Zembe, and we're still unpacking this. But Mr. Luxon, if sanctions were lifted, what key reforms or adjustments would Zimbabwe's economy need to attract fresh investments?
What we need to do is to look back, because our regulatory regime, our laws, had been crafted with the sanctions in mind. Now that the sanctions are being lifted, like what the European Union has already done, okay, and right now we've got advocates in the United States Congress who are saying, let's get rid of this, Zidera thing. Okay, it's not fair, it's not moral, it's not just for it to continue to be there. That calls for going into our regulatory reforms, regulations, and coming in with regulatory reforms, because for the international community to deal freely with us, there are areas that we need to be able to reform, laws that we need to change, in order for them to deal freely with us. For instance, one may say, what are examples in those particular areas? Number one, our tax regime was so high because we had to fund government expenditure with what we had. Now that we are going to be free and access more resources, and government is now going to be able to access funding and support, budgetary support from World Bank, IMF, African Development Bank, it should reduce corporate tax, it should reduce individual tax in order to continue funding. So that's one very critical area for us to be able to reform the tax. Number two, we also need to rein in on corruption. One of our weaknesses currently that is really, affecting us is the corruption issue. Yes. So, and we have the means and mechanisms, we've got the instruments to deal with it.
Yes, we don't need outside help.
We don't need outside help.
We do it
in-house. We can do it ourselves and sort out and rein in on that. Okay. Then lastly, what's important also is for us now, for the banks, the financial institutions, right, to now be prepared to look at how, when they can now access, concessionary loan funding facilities as intermediaries on behalf of the country.
You're actually now answering my next question,
yes,
because I'm curious how these institutions you're mentioning and regional financial innovations are necessary in cushioning the economy and preparing for global re-engagement.
Yes. Now they will have access, right, to external lines of credit. We'll have more foreign direct investment coming into the country, and it comes through the banking channels.
Yes, that's true.
And what had happened because of sanctions, one of the major impact of sanctions was that companies collapsed.
A lot of
when they collapsed, they could not pay their loans. So we had a lot of debts accumulating. Okay? And banks ran out of money, right? And they could not continue the lending because of those challenges. So the traditional banking collapsed effectively. And for banks to survive, They then shifted from traditional lending, which we call interest-bearing business, right, in banking, right, to service fees. Okay? And that's why people are crying, because I put my money in the bank, but when I get there tomorrow,
It's gone.
It's gone because they had to come up with service fees in order to survive. Otherwise, they would have all collapsed.
Yes, that's
Right?
true.
But we needed banking institutions, financial institutions to remain there, to remain resilient, and they've done a good job. But given that now the world is opening, they're now going to access funding, we're now going to have more funds. What is important is now for even the financial institutions to now reconfigure and restructure themselves so that at least we can go back to the core business of banks as intermediaries, as lending institutions to support the economy. And that's very important for the banks to do that, to restructure. On top of that, they are riding now on digital technology, which is now transforming, the entire global system, the entire global system and our operations, with AI, for instance, coming in. And we need to leverage on that in terms of for efficiency that we need and to improve on our way of doing things and also being able to mobilize. Two, even in terms of the turnaround, since the way the banks used to look at credit scoring clients, they now has to change.
It has to
we
change.
now also even need to move away from just purely collateralized business. In other words, if you want me to give you money, give me your title deeds.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
We now need to move
From
to,
that.
based on, performance of the business that the client is doing. So that's very important because so that we can support, because most of the people now who are in business, they are new. Talk about the youngsters. They don't have houses, but they've got creative and good ideas. They can run with things.
Yes.
So once they come up with good ideas, what we need to do is work together in partnership with them and based on the viability of the business, we should be able then to give reasonable lending. But that does not take away the need for collateral security because you can only lend based on performance of the organization up to a certain given level. Beyond a certain level, in terms of risk management, you still need your collateral security. But as new players, new institutions, informal sector, build up, get houses, get cars, get whatever it is, cattle, etc., then they can be able to collateralize and be able to access even more lending.
Now, Mr. Kazembe, just to take you back a little bit,
Yeah.
you were talking about benefiting from international access to
Yes.
credit lines and partnerships.
Yes.
Now, which industries or export sectors are best positioned to benefit from this?
The mining sector, right, it's export-driven. The agricultural sector, horticulture in particular, very good. We're talking about the tourism sector. They can access as well, which is very important in terms of developing facilities that are able to compete internationally. What we need to realize is we are competing with the rest of the world.
Yes.
Right? Okay. And also, lastly, very important indeed is the service sector in terms of the supply chains to make sure that they are effective, they are efficient. The world is now operating on instant time.
Yes.
It's no longer operating on the old days where you wait for weeks and days and months. It's instant. This is real time world. It's no longer the past. And we need to revamp all our systems, reskill our people so that we can then be able to move along with the rest of the world in terms of the real time and also technologically driven system. We need our people to be techno-savvy in order to operate and deal with the current system.
Okay, now finally, from an economist standpoint, what's your outlook for Zimbabwe's growth trajectory if sanctions are lifted and investor confidence
It's an exciting journey. It's an exciting journey. I see Zimbabwe, in terms of our GDP, easily hitting by 2030 $100 billion economy. It is real, right? Okay, we can do it. We can achieve it. It's very important. And secondly, I see, us companies now reviving back, okay, employment creation now beginning to take place, where I see the informalization of our economy, right, moving away from informal. In other words, informal, not formal, right? What is important is, SMEs, right? And people confuse between SMEs and informal economy.
Yes.
Right? Globally, SMEs on average contribute about 60% of economy, even in America, even in Europe.
It's the backbone.
Okay, so the SMEs are the backbone of the economy, and we need to support these,
Yes.
right, effectively as we move forward. So it's an exciting journey, and given the creativity, ingenuity, and the innovation of our people, I mean, okay, I'm excited, and I can only see a bright future for this country, and going back to the glory days when we were the jewel of Africa.
The bread basket.
And of the whole of Africa, in fact, and the jewel of Africa. And not only that, we've already done it and shown that from a tourism point of view, best country in this world to visit. And we can say, make it the best economy to invest in.
Actually, not just from a tourism perspective, even from an agricultural perspective. Look at our wheat harvest right now. Look at our our maize harvest. Look at our tobacco.
We are a blessed country because we are one of those countries with a lot of mineral resources.
Yes,
we've got very good weather, very good weather, one of the best weathers in this world for agriculture and even for living, for people to live. If God blesses us with the good rains, right, coming through, and we skill our people, we provide them with resources. When people are provided with resources, they perform wonders. And that's what I see. And I've got every hope, and I'm, very positive about our trajectory and hitting the 2030. And I'm saying we all need to rally behind the 2030 vision. The 2030 vision, which is being an upper middle income economy by 2030, and that will only translate and show itself by the transformed livelihoods of our people.
Sir, thank you very much. That was an insightful conversation we were having in the studio. Now, the discussion around lifting sanctions is not only about external policies, but also about Zimbabwe's growing readiness to re-engage trade and investment. What remains clear is collaborative approach between government, businesses and international partners can set the stage for stronger growth and greater prosperity. Now, until next time, my name is Mnangagwa, and from myself and the crew behind the scenes, we say back to business.